Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Nehemiah chapter 7. Most of this chapter is filled with genealogy and stuff like that, and it's going to take some patience to read it, but the Lord put it there, so it needs to be read. He put it there for us for a reason. So go ahead and read it. What I want to talk about today is I'm going to mix a little bit of chapter 6 in here with this 7, partly because my Bible does it as well. It's starting in chapter 6, verse 15, all the way down to chapter 7, finishing in verse 3. It talks about the wall being completed. So I want to talk about that just a little bit, and so we're going to get into it. And 15 in chapter 6 says, in 15 and 16 is what we're going to talk with. Actually, verse 16, just 16. Let's look at just 16. And it happened when all the enemies heard of it, meaning the wall was finished, when all the enemies heard of it and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes. For they perceived that this work was done by God. And there's a couple things I want to touch on here. Is number one, when you're doing work for God, the people around you see what's of God. They know what's of God. Whether they want to agree that there is a God or not, and whether they want to acknowledge that you're a godly person or not, that you follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whether you follow Jesus Christ. They can see the work of God. They will see it done. They will see the change in you. They will see the change in your attitude. They will see a change in your lifestyle. They will see these things. And it says here that they perceive that the work was done by God. You see, we can't do all of this on our own. We can't be a moral person on our own because, let's face it. We live in a body and we have our flesh, which is either when you see the flesh in the Bible, it's either the skin or it's your the body's desires. I say that's my own words, the body's desires, and it helps me to understand it a little better. That is who we are, and we would follow that because all the body wants to do is feel good. All the body wants to do is do what's good, and the body was created to grow, mature, and die. That's what it was created for. So we can't do this work that's in us. It's God that does the work in us. It's God that does the work through us. It's not us. It's not us. And people can see that. People can see that. And let's see, the enemies, you see here in this one that the enemies saw that and they were disheartened. You see, the enemy hates it when you start doing what God has called you to do. The enemy hates it when you start reaching people for the gospel, when you start sharing Jesus Christ with people. The enemy hates it because they know it's of God. They know it's not you. But the enemy tries to attack you to get you to stop. We must realize that it's all God. That God wants to work in us. God wants to do a work through us. God wants to use us, but we have to make ourselves available. We have to say, God, let your will be done today in my life, not my will. See, God gave us our will so that we would want to please him. He gave us our will so that we would want to do good things for him. He gave us our will so that we could choose him. That we could choose what he would choose, refuse what he would refuse. That's why God gives us our will. The enemy hates it. And you can see it here, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes. The enemy hates it when they see you letting God do good through you. The enemy just hates that. But none of what I talked about is a reason to stop. That's all the more reason to keep going. Because as you start giving yourself more and more over to God, the enemy is going to ramp up his attack. He is going to try harder. He is going to try different ways. The word says that he roams around like a roaring lion, seeking to devour, like a roaring lion. like a roaring lion. There's not much bite behind that. So if we stop focusing on what the enemy is seeing, start focusing on what God is seeing, we will finish things just like this wall was completed. Apostle Paul says, I've run my race. Are you running yours? Have a super day, guys. I love you all.